Hi again, grade 12s. In today's lesson, we are going to look at the more advanced functions that we can use in Excel. Some of the advanced functions are nested ifs, the vertical lookup, round in conjunction with other functions. We are also going to look at basic time and date functions and text functions. So to start with, we are going to look at the nested if. Okay, nested if allows you to insert more than one if in a function, thereby allowing you to have more than one result. So if we look at this example, if we had to use a nested if, we would be able to get different results for each percentage. Okay, so we can put in a nested if saying that any mark greater than or equal to 80 will give you an A. Greater than or equal to 70 will give you a B. Greater than or equal to 60 will give you a C. So that's where the nested if is an advantage compared to the normal if statement. So let's look and see how we actually do this. I am going to click in cell L3 and we are going to put in an if statement that will give people who have paid over 25,000 Rand a 15% discount and over 15,000 Rand a 10% discount, and everybody else is going to end up with a 5% discount. So just like with every function, we start off with an equals and we are going to type in the first if. We are going to click on the price and we are going to put in our first criteria saying if it's greater than or equal to 25,000 Rand. Now you separate your if statements with a comma, so I'm going to put in a comma and we are going to say that it is going to give, they are going to get a 15% discount. Now we're going to put our second if statement in saying if it's greater than or equal to 15,000 Rand, we are going to get a 10% discount, and if it doesn't meet that criteria, everybody is going to get a 5% discount. Now you've got to close however many brackets you have opened, you now have to close. So you can see that we've opened 2 brackets, so now I have to close 2 brackets and I'm going to press enter. And this person is only going to get 5%. So if I drag my function down, it automatically fills it in, and I can format those cells to a percentage so you can actually see how it correlates to our if statement. So now in an if statement you can put in text as a result of criteria and you can actually do a calculation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to do a calculation to work out the actual discount that they're going to get, taking into consideration the percentage discount. So I'm going to start again. I'm going to say equals if that cell is greater than or equal to 25,000, then we're going to multiply that cell by 15% because that's their discount. I've separated my first if with a comma. I'm going to do my second if. That cell is greater than or equal to 15,000 Rand. Then they are entitled to a 10% discount. And if they don't meet the criteria, they are only entitled to a 5% discount. Closing both brackets and I'm pressing enter. Okay, now you've typed in your function. We are going to copy it down to the other cell so you can see your results. And because I formatted it into a percentage, it's not going to give you the right answer, but if I format it to a currency, you'll see exactly how much discount each person is going to get according to the criteria. We are now going to look at the VLOOKUP function or the vertical lookup function. And basically what VLOOKUP means is Excel is going to go and look up information in a column because columns run vertically. Whereas if we had to use an H lookup or horizontal lookup, it would go and look up information for you in a row. So now let's have a look at what the VLOOKUP is. You can use it to find the closest match or to search for a value instead of having to do it yourself. So let's have a look. You have to build your VLOOKUP function step by step. And this is what the syntax looks like for your VLOOKUP. The lookup value is the value you want to look up. The table is where you are going to find your information. The column number is in which column you are going to find the information. And the lookup range is either a false or a true. Now, let me explain to you the difference between false or true. If you use false, you are going to look up a specific value. And if you use true, you are going to look up a value within a range of things, like between 80 and 90, or 90 and 100. Whereas with false, you are specifically going to look up the 90 or the 100 or the 80. So this is just recapping on what the value is. It's what the value is, what you are looking for. The table is where you are going to find your data. The index number is the number, the column number that your data is in. And the last one is either true or false, whether it is a specific value or a range. So now let's go and have a look at how to do a VLOOKUP function. So what I'm going to do in the VLOOKUP is I am going to click in cell I3, and I am going to go and look up how much the price is for the European Horizon Tour, and I'm going to look that data up in the price sheet. Okay, so we are going to start with inserting the VLOOKUP function by clicking on the functions. I'm going to go to more functions. I am going to go and look at lookup and reference, and they listed alphabetically, so it's right at the bottom. I'm going to choose VLOOKUP and I'm going to say OK. Now this allows you to do your VLOOKUP in a step-by-step manner, and it's actually quite easy. So the first thing I'm going to look up is the lookup value, and I want to look up the European Horizon. Then I click in the table and I click on the price tab, because that's where I'm going to go and find my information. And I'm going to highlight my table, and then I'm going to click in the column number, and I'm going to find the price in column 5. Now it is going to be a false value because it is a specific value, and you can already see that it's put the amount in for you. So when you're done, all you do is click on OK, and it's put the amount in for you. Grade 12's VLOOKUP does take a bit of practice, so I suggest you do a lot of practicing for VLOOKUP, and you'll actually find it's easier than the nested if. So we are now going to go and move on to using the round function. Right, let's take a look at the round function. Now, the round function is used to reduce a given value to a specific number of decimal places. Now, you've got to remember, grade 12, that there is a big difference between rounding a number to specific decimal places or no decimal places and using formats to round decimals. The difference is as follows. When you use the formatting, when you use a function, it is going to use all the decimal places regardless of the number of decimal places that you see in your spreadsheet. Whereas with the round function, it only uses the number of decimals that you have rounded the number to. So let's look at the round syntax. The first thing you do is you type equals round, and then you type in the number or value that you want rounded, followed by however many digits you want the number rounded to. Okay, let's look at how we use the round function in Excel. in this exercise, I'm going to click in cell G15, and if you look to the left of G15, there's a function that's been typed in, the average function, and you can see we've calculated the average duration, and it has got about 7 or 8 decimal places. So what we are going to do in cell G15 is we are going to round those decimal places to 1. So I'm going to type in equals and the round function. I'm going to start off by clicking on the number that I want rounded. It is then followed by a comma, and then you put in the number of digits that you want it rounded to, and that is entirely up to you or whatever you are asked in your question paper. In this case, I'm going to type in a 1 because we would like it rounded to 1 decimal place. I'm going to close my brackets and I'm going to press enter, and you will see from the answer that the number has been rounded to 1 decimal place. Okay, grade 12s, we're now going to add round to an average function. Now, round can be added to a number of functions. You can add it to a percentage, you can add it to min, max, sum, but in today's lesson, we are going to add it to average. So I'm going to start off by typing in the word round, and when you add round to another function, you always start with round. I'm going to open my brackets, and I'm now going to type in the second function, which in this case is average. We are going to calculate the average duration, so I'm going to highlight my range. I'm then going to close my brackets, put a comma in, and let's round it off to 2 decimal places, and I'm going to close my second bracket. So let's have a look at the function. If you look at the middle function first, we are just calculating the average of F3 to F13, but at the same time, we are using round to round the average off to 2 decimal places, and then you press enter, and from the result you can see that it's been rounded to 2 decimal places. Grade 12s, round comes in 3 formats. It's round on its own. You can use round up, which will round it to the nearest whole, round it up to the nearest whole number, and then you have round down, which will round a number down to the nearest whole number. So grade 12s, that's it for round, and we are now going to move on to basic time and date calculations. Okay, let's look at time and date functions. Now, the first date function that we learned, and I think we learned that in grade 10, is today. And what today does is it puts in today's date, and it will be updated every time you open your spreadsheet. Another function that we've looked at already is equals now. And what equals now does is it inserts the date and the time. So now what would you need to use dates for? You can use it to calculate age, you can use it to calculate the number of years someone's been at a company, etc., etc. So let's look at our first date function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click in cell B2 and I'm going to insert today's date. So I'm going to say equals today, and I'm going to immediately open and close my brackets and press enter, and it's put today's date in. So now I am going to use today's date to calculate the ages of everybody in column A. So how do we do that? We are going to say equals, and we are going to use today's date. But grade 12s, you've got to remember that if we want to copy this formula down to the rest of the people in the row, in the column, you have to use your absolute cell references. And remember, those are inserted by pressing function key 4. And I'm going to minus their dates of birth, and then I'm going to press enter, and it's going to give me a rather large number. So now why is it giving me that number? Because it's calculated the age in days, and we have to convert that to years. So it's quite simple. All you do is we apply BODMAS, and we put our brackets in, and we are going to divide that number by 365.25, because that's how many days there are in a year, and I'm going to enter, and that looks a whole lot better. Now I'm going to copy it down, and we've calculated everybody's age. So that's basically calculating using the date, grade 12s. So now I'm going to show you how to calculate using time. And I'm going to do it very, very quickly. I'm just going to type in start and end over here and put in some times very quickly for you. So we are going to work out, say, however many hours are from the beginning to the end. So once again, we are going to subtract the smaller one from the bigger one. And I'm going to close my brackets and press enter. And then, grade 12s, we end up with a time. And a time is not what we want. We want a number. So now what we have to do is we have to multiply this by 24. And why do we multiply it by 24? Because there are 24 hours in a day. And once we've multiplied it by 24, we then need to go and format it to a number. And we will get 8 hours. And I can copy this down. And the second person has worked for 5.5 hours. So that's all you basically need to remember about dates and times. If you are calculating age and you want it to appear in years, you need to divide your number by 365.25. And if you are working with time, you need to multiply your time by 24 because there are 24 hours in a day. And grade 12, that's basically dates and times. We are now going to move on to text functions, and there's quite a lot of those. And we are going to start with left. Okay, we are going to look at a number of text functions, and they are left, right, mid, upper and lower, concatenate, len, value, and find. We're going to start with the left function. So what left does is it selects and returns characters from a text string starting on the left. For instance, if you look at my example over here, it says equals left B2, 3. So what it's done is it has extracted 3 letters starting on the left of cell B2. And that would be the M, the R, and the space afterwards. So our result is Mr. So if you had to look at the next one over here, it would be equals left B3, 3. It has extracted the M, the R, and the S. So that's pretty simple. Let's have a look at doing that in practice. So I'm going to click in cell D2, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to only extract the first letter of the name so that we can create a initial. So I'm going to type in equals left, open brackets. I'm going to click on the cell that I want to extract the letter from. It is followed by a number, and then however many letters I want to extract. And in this case, it is only 1. I'm going to close my brackets and press enter, and the result should be J. So if I copy that down, everybody now has an initial because we extracted the first letter starting on the very left of the name column. So that's left, grade 12s. So now we are going to go and look at right. So what does right do? The opposite of left, obviously. So what right does is it extracts a number of letters starting on the very right-hand side of a cell. So in this case, if you look at my example, it's equals right B2, 2. So if we look at it in B2, starting on the very right-hand side, if we extract 2 characters, it is going to give us the R and the D. So let's put that into practice. I am going to create a code, and I am going to extract the last 3 letters of the surname. So I'm going to start with right. I'm going to click on the cell that I want the extraction to take place. I'm going to enter my comma, and I want 3 letters. I'm going to close my brackets and enter. And if you look, it has extracted the A, R, and the D. So it's from the very right, it has counted 3 letters. If I copy that down, it's extracted 3 letters on the right hand side of everybody's surname. So left and right are pretty simple, grade 12s. So now moving on to mid. Mid gets just a little bit more complicated, but not very. What the mid function does is it selects a substring from a string of text starting at a point that you specify. In other words, it starts at some point in the middle of a string of text, and it counts however many letters to the right that you specify. For instance, let's look at this function. It says equals mid A1, comma 3, comma 3. So what that means, in A1, it is going to start at the 3rd letter, which in this case is the L, and it's going to count 3 letters from the L. So that would give you L, L, I. So the result is L, L, I. Let's put that into practice. Okay, I'm going to extract 4 letters starting at the 2nd letter of the name column. So I'm going to type in equals mid. We want that cell. I'm going to start at the, let's start at the 4th letter, and I'm going to extract 4 letters from the 4th letter. And we should end up with A-T-H-A. So let's look at the function. If you look at the word Jonathan, if I start at the 4th letter, it gives us the A, and it's going to extract 4 letters from the 4th letter, which means the A, the T, the H, and the A. So I'm going to copy this down. And in some cases, when the word's not long enough, it'll just extract however many letters that it actually can. Okay, grade 12s, that's the mid function. So what we are going to do now is we are going to move on to upper and lower. Now upper and lower are quite simple. Upper puts everything into uppercase, i.e. capital letters, and lower will put everything into lowercase, i.e. non-capital letters. So if I say equals upper, and I click on cell F2 and I close my brackets, you can see it's put it into capital letters. So now if I had to type the word Pamela in capital letters, and in cell G3 I'm going to type in the lower function, it is going to put the word Pamela into lowercase. So upper and lower, I think, are the easiest functions you'll ever have to remember. But they can be added to other functions as well. So you could add it to a left or a right or a mid. So now the next function we're going to move on to is len, and len is also pretty easy. And what len does is it counts the number of characters that you have in a string of text. So if I say equals len, and I open my brackets, and I click in cell C2, it's going to count how many characters there are in the word Jonathan. And if I copy it down, it's counted however many characters there are in each person's surname. Okay, and that's pretty simple, and that's the len function, grade 12s. The next function we are going to look at is value and find. So what value does is it turns a number that has been formatted as text into an actual number. For instance, if you've typed in a cell number, you can format that using value into an actual number that you can use in a function, because you can't use text in a function. And then the next thing we're going to look at is find, and what find does is it finds a specific string, a specific letter or number or dash or a hash in a string of text. So let's start with value. I am going to type in equals value, and I'm going to click on cell D3. I'm going to close my brackets and press enter, and you'll see that it has turned D3 into an actual number, and you know that D3 is text if you look at it over here, because it has the 0 in front of it. And if you type a 0 in an Excel spreadsheet before any other number, it drops the 0 if it's formatted as text, as it has done here. Okay, let's go and look at find. What find does, grade 12s, is it finds a specific character in a string of text or numbers. So for today, I am going to go and look for the letter E in the word surname. So I'm going to type in my function, which is find. I'm going to type in the letter E, and I want to find it in cell B2. I'm going to close my brackets and press enter, and it's telling me that it is the 7th character in cell B2. Now, something you've got to remember is that it is case sensitive. So if your text that you are looking for is typed in capital letters, you must type the letter in your function in capital letters, otherwise it's not going to work. Let's practice find again using a number this time. So I'm going to say equals find. Let's type in the letter, let's type in a 0 in that cell. And it's the very first one. You can see that. And it always comes up, whether you've got 2 or 3 or 4 in a string of text, it always finds the first one for you. Okay, our last text function that we're going to take a look at is concatenate. Now, concatenate seems like a big word, and all it means is joining things together. So you can use concatenate to, for instance, join a title, initial, and surname together in one column, if that's what you wanted to do. Or you could join a number of characters taken from mid or left to make an input code. So now let's look at concatenate. It allows you to combine 2 or more text strings from different cells together into one cell. So if you look at my example, it says equals concatenate C2, A2, and B2. And what it's done is it has joined the surname, the title in cell C2, which is Mr., along with the name in cell A2, which is John, and the surname in cell B2, which is Smith. Now you will notice that there are no spaces, so you need to add the spaces when you are doing a concatenate. So how to add spaces, grade 12s, is that you actually put inverted commas in with a space between, just like I've done in the example. So now if you look at the same function with the spaces, it is Mr. space John space Smith. So that makes it a lot easier. You can also add normal text to concatenate. So if you wanted to create an email for someone, all you need to do is put the text that you type in inverted commas, and you can add it to the concatenate. So let's have a look at my example. I said equals concatenate B2, which is the word Mandla, and I'm adding it to abcmail.com. And you can see that abcmail.com is inverted commas because I typed in that text. So we've created an email for Mandla at abc.com. If you find concatenate a little bit difficult to use, instead of using the word concatenate, you can also use the and sign, and the and sign does exactly the same thing. So if you look at my example, I have said equals C2, which is Mr., the and sign, followed by my inverted commas, the and sign again, followed by A2, which is John, the and sign again and inverted commas, and the and sign again and cell B2, and it gives us exactly the same result, Mr. John Smith. Okay, what we're going to do is we are now actually going to practice typing in the concatenate, and I'm going to start by joining the grade and the class. So I'm going to say equals concatenate. I'm going to open my brackets. I'm going to join the grade, but I want to have a space between the grade and the class. I'm going to put a comma in, followed by 2 inverted commas with a space and a comma. And my class, I'm going to close the brackets and I'm going to press enter, and we get 12A. So grade 12s, I'm going to do that again, and this time I'm going to use do it using the and sign, just to give you an idea how easy it is. I'm going to join the grade. And the class. And I get 10D. So you can practice this and decide for yourselves whether you want to use the word concatenate or whether you want to use the and sign. Whichever is easier for you is the one that you should stick to. They are both correct in an exam paper. So let's just quickly go and create a login name, maybe using left or right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a login name using the code and the surname. So I'm going to say equals concatenate the code, and then I'm going to use the first 2 characters of the name to do a login code, and we get a login name of 2314KO. So that's pretty simple, grade 12s, and then you can drag it down and you can copy it to the other learners' names. But what we're going to do now is we are going to learn how to change the minimum and maximum values on the y-axis. And you all remember that the horizontal axis is your x-axis and your vertical axis is your y-axis. So we're going to learn how to change the minimum and the maximum values. We are also going to learn how to change the major values on the y-axis. We are going to relabel the x-axis, and I'm going to teach you how to create a stacked bar chart. So let's start with the first thing. We are going to change the minimum and the maximum values on our y-axis, and it's quite simple to do. What you do is you click anywhere on your y-axis. You're going to click on layout. We are going to go to axes, and we are going to go to the primary vertical axis, and then we are going to go to more primary vertical axis options. And in this dialog box where it says format axis, it allows you to change the minimum and the maximum value. So I'm going to change the minimum value to 0, and I'm going to change the maximum value to 40, and then I'm going to say close. And you can see that it's changed it immediately. Where it was 5 and 35, it is now 0 and 40. Quite easy. So now another thing we can do is we can change the major values. And the major values are the way the numbers go up from 0. So in this case, it goes to 5, 10, 15, 20. And I'm going to change the values to 2, just to give you an idea of what it looks like. So again, you're going to axis, click on your y-axis. We are going to go back to axes. We are working on our vertical axis, and I'm going to go down to more primary vertical axis options. And in this case, we are going to work with the major units. So I'm going to change it from 5 to 2, and I'm going to say OK and close, and you'll see how it's changed it. So it now goes 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 instead of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So that was quite easy to do. You just need to practice. Now another thing you need to know how to do grade 12s is relabeling a chart axis. Now if you look at this chart, on the x-axis it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 as opposed to having the learners' actual names. So we are going to change that. So I'm going to add the learners' names to the x-axis. So again, I'm going to access the x-axis. I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to go to Select Data. I'm going to click on Edit, and it's going to allow me to drag the range that I want to change. Once I've done that, I'm going to say OK, and you can see it's put the kids' names into the edit box. I'm going to say OK, and now if you have a look at the chart, it's replaced the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s with the children's names. Quite easy. And now this chart doesn't look so nice because we don't know what the x-axis label is, we don't know what the y-axis label is, and the chart doesn't have a title. So we're quickly going to add those three. I'm going to go back to layout. I'm going to go to chart title. I'm going to choose above the chart, and I'm simply going to type in learner marks and press enter, and it immediately puts a title in for you. I'm going to do the same with the x-axis. I'm going to go to axis titles, horizontal, because that's our x-axis. I want the title below the axis, and I'm going to type in learner names and press enter, and it's labeled our x-axis for us. And exactly the same way we are going to do our y-axis. Now grade 12s, I prefer using a rotated title, but it's entirely up to you how you want your title to be on your chart. And I'm going to type in the word marks and enter, and it's put the title in for you. So that was pretty simple, grade 12s. So now what we're going to do is we are going to go and create a stacked column chart or a stacked bar chart. And what a stacked column or bar chart does is that it compares two results on the same chart, and it's very easy to do. So the first thing before we insert a chart is we have to highlight the information that we want in our chart. So I'm going to highlight surname, and I also want test 1 and test 2. Remember, grade 12s, that if you want to select cells that are not adjacent to each other, like in this case, you have to use your control key. So I've selected the data I want in my chart. I'm going to go to insert. We are going to insert a column chart, and if you look at this, it says stacked column. I'm going to choose a stacked column, and you can see immediately that it's put the test 1 results in blue and the test 2 results in red. And to make it simpler for you, we can actually add data labels so that you can actually see how much each test was out of, or what each learner got for the test. So I'm going to go to more data label options. I want the value, and I'm going to say close, and it puts the values in for the red, which is test 2, and I'm going to do the same thing for test 1. I highlight the blue. I'm going to go to data labels, more data label options. I'm making sure that it's value, and I'm going to say close, and it's put the values in for your test 1 as well. So now you've got a good comparison between the two tests. And that, grade 12s, brings us to the end of editing and changing charts. Thank you for watching.